I'm 32-year-old Olivia Mitchell, and I've been quietly developing my tech business for the past 5 years. My family, however, thought I was squandering my ability. My brother's fiancé just acknowledged me as the creator of the software that her company purchased for millions of dollars during his engagement dinner tonight. The expression on my parents' faces as she said in a whisper, "Wait, you're Nextech's founder." Every holiday meal where they felt sorry for me was worth it for that moment. The jaw of my brother remains on the ground. If you're viewing this from a perspective that rejects your dreams, click like and subscribe below. There were expectations associated with growing up in Highland Park, a lovely neighborhood north of Chicago. Richard Mitchell, my father, was more than just a surgeon. When cases got complicated, other doctors turned to him as their surgeon. Diana, my mother, was a business lawyer who never lost a case and controlled courtrooms. Then came my brother Jason, who was years older than me and the ideal firstborn, who flawlessly followed our father's career route into medicine. Although it was tiny, our house was lovely. There was more to the dinner table than merely eating. It was for reporting accomplishments. Mom would start most evenings with, "What did everyone manage to get done today?" There was always something amazing about Jason: flawless test results, triumphs at science fairs, hours spent volunteering at recognized medical facilities. My responses were never quite up to par when it was my turn. For fun, I created a web page. When I was 15, I made an announcement. "I'm genuinely proud of the weekend I spent learning HTML and CSS," Mom said. "That's nice, honey," with that special smile that stopped short of her eyes. However, you ought to be concentrating on getting your debate team ready. Colleges seek long-term commitments, not pastimes. Dad refused to go. I'm already reaching out to inquire about Jason's advanced biology research. It was an obvious message. Toys were computers. Courtrooms and operating rooms were the sites of true accomplishment. I turned my bedroom into a safe haven where I could explore tech forms and programming languages without fear of criticism. Jason, on the other hand, had framed academic certificates on his walls. Mine included app UI drawings and code printouts. The following day, I would drag myself through chemistry class after staying up until 2 a.m. studying Python and JavaScript. My parents were unaware of my fatigue unless it had an impact on my academics. I created a program at the age of 16 that assisted in planning the large yearly fundraising for my school. My software slashed their planning time in half, which astounded Mrs. Winters, the event coordinator. "Your daughter is exceptionally gifted," she informed my parents during a school event. "Oh, Olivia has a lot of interests," Mom said tactfully. "However, we are concentrating on completing her prerequisites for law school." They had already made up their minds about my future, even though I had no intention of applying to law school. One of the pivotal moments in my junior year was the regional coding competition. I made it to the finals using an inventory management system after months of work. I had constructed. Jason's celebration of being accepted to medical school coincided with the competition. Mom said, without seeming very sad, "We're so sorry, sweetie, but your brother has worked hard for this all of his life." You get it. Correct. Maybe I competed by myself the following time. First place went to the sole student without family assistance. Professional software developers who served as judges told me I had innate talent and vision that was beyond my years. When I returned home with my prize in hand, our home was crowded with family members honoring Jason. My accomplishment deserved a little mention. Dad said, "That's great, dear," before he started toasting my brother again. I decided that night that I would achieve success on my own terms, independent of their approval. I would create something that would compel them to see me, something they couldn't ignore or downplay. College applications and family pressure to apply to Ivy League universities with robust pre-law programs arrived in the senior year. Rather, I submitted applications to state colleges with top-notch departments of computer science. My parents responded as though I had declared my intention to join the circus when I received my admittance to Illinois Tech and its hefty merit scholarship. With disappointment with every word, Dad exclaimed, "You're wasting away your potential. You might be accepted to Yale based on your exam results. Computer science, Mom asked, raising her voice. For someone with your level of skill, that is not a field. In other words, that field isn't deserving of a Mitchell. Jason, who had just returned from his first year of medical school, attempted to mediate in a kind but patronizing manner. Mom, it might simply be a phase. Before she starts law school, let her get it out of her system. My parents' expectations weighed heavily on me as I departed for college that fall, but I also felt lighter than I had ever felt before. At last, I could pursue my passions without fear of continuous criticism, what my family referred to as failure. I acknowledged that as the first step in determining my own course. College was a liberating experience. I wasn't the daughter at Illinois Tech wasting her potential playing video games. I was Olivia, the student who was praised by her professors for coming up with creative solutions to programming problems. I was surrounded by people who understood my language and appreciated my abilities for the first time. I met Emma Rodriguez in my advanced programming class my sophomore year. Emma and I completed the final project in half the allotted time and added extra features for fun, whereas the majority of students found it difficult. After class, we started going out for coffee and stayed until the campus cafe closed. In addition to the unrealized potential of technology, the healthcare system is flawed. Emma claimed that one evening, an article about medical communication breakdowns appeared on her laptop. Her mother finally received appropriate therapy for lupus after 3 false diagnoses. Physicians are capable of miracles, but they are unable to effectively communicate with their patients or with one another. Over the course of the following week, we drew ideas on whiteboards and napkins after that chat, imagining a platform that would transform the exchange of medical data between patients and providers. We had the foundation of what would eventually become Next Tech before the conclusion of the semester. Going home for summer break meant that nothing had changed. During family get-togethers, Jason's medical residency was the first question posed by family members. When I was changing to a legitimate major, they asked me the first question. I began to provide evasive responses about researching technology so that discussions could proceed swiftly. With a dismissive shrug, my uncle would reply, "Computer stuff is getting popular. After you graduate, I'm sure you'll be able to get an entry-level position. Perhaps that confirms what they were unaware of. Emma and I were working on our prototype whenever we had free time. Her parents kindly made room for us to work in their garage in Chicago. Her family inquired about our development while bringing us meals. It couldn't have been more different from my own family. We developed a functional beta version by the time we were juniors. We participated in entrepreneurial contests and won enough cash to establish our company and submit patent applications. We were introduced by a lecturer to Dr. Harriet Chen, a disgruntled hospital administrator who served as our first advisor and, ultimately, our first paying customer. Patient outcomes may change as a result. After viewing our demonstration, Dr. Chen asked us when we could start a pilot program. My father, meanwhile, cornered me near the dessert table over Thanksgiving dinner my senior year, using my mother's name in such way that indicated a united parental front. He remarked, "Diana and I have been talking. Your employment prospects worry us. Jason can assist you land a job at his hospital as an administrator while you work things out. Something steady." I inhaled deeply. In reality, I'm trying to launch a company. He laughed incredulously. Not cruelly. It's a company. Olivia, take it seriously. Before considering entrepreneurship, you must have experience. First, get a real job. I didn't try to tell my family about my work life again after that. Having something I put a lot of effort into viewed like a childish fantasy hurt too much. After graduating, Emma and I moved into a small apartment in the South Loop of Chicago. We worked side jobs, built websites, and survived on coffee coding and ramen until our eyes burned. We could hardly afford a corner desk at a co-working facility for our initial workplace. Tech then gradually acquired popularity. We were able to hire Tyler, a talented developer, as our first employee thanks to a tiny angel investment from one of our competition judges. A regional medical center and a network of outpatient clinics both awarded us contracts. When I made a house call, discussions stayed surface level. When asked, I would respond that work is fine. They didn't ask for specifics. I assumed that I was making ends meet at Christmas in an entry-level tech support position. Jason told a pharmaceutical sales agent he was engaged that year. As family members inquired about the wedding plans, my dad grinned proudly. My mother later discovered me by myself in the kitchen. As she refilled her wine glass, she remarked, "You know Olivia, Mark, Jason's pal, is not dating. He is nearing the end of his neurology residency. I could set up a meeting." The subtext was obvious. If I couldn't succeed myself, at least I could marry someone who could. What my family was unaware of the exponential growth in our customer base. Medical publications are starting to recognize the impact of our technology as hospitals report lower mistakes and better patient satisfaction. One morning, Emma stated, "We need to talk about scaling." Distributing invitations to investor meetings across our desk, we are unable to meet demand. Nextech had 30 workers and $5 million in venture money by the time I was 26. I was able to pay off my student loans and had moved into a small but lovely apartment with a view of Lake Michigan. Nevertheless, I drove my old college car and dressed simply when I went to see my parents, so they could continue to tell their story about my struggles. It was no longer only about disproving them. It was about defending something valuable against those who had never appreciated it. I didn't want success on my terms to mean that my route was no longer legitimate. One day, the gap between my two worlds widened. In the other, industry magazines started to take notice of me as a budding digital entrepreneur. The daughter who had fallen short of her potential was me. At times, the cognitive dissonance was too much to handle. On a Tuesday morning in April, Memorial Health System sent the email. I called Emma into my office after reading it 3 times. Their goal is to deploy next-generation technology throughout their network. My voice was hardly more than a whisper as I spoke. 3 states and 27 hospitals. Emma fell onto my desk's chair across from me. In the Midwest, that is the biggest healthcare provider, I was done. It felt unreal to finally arrive at this point, even though we had been working toward it for years. The deal would make us a big force in health technology and tenfold increase our revenue. Other hospital systems wanted to know what Memorial had seen in us, and within hours our phones were ringing. Our first purchase offer from a bigger tech business came the next month, $30 million, in a modern conference room. Emma and I listened to business leaders twice our age justify why we should accept their offer of employment. As we made our way back to our office, Emma said, "That's a generous offer," I concurred, "and we're rejecting it." We both understood that Next technology was more valuable than cash. It was about creating something that mattered and genuinely benefited people. We had no intention of relinquishing power. 2 weeks later, our company was valued at over $100 million by venture capital firm Sierra Partners, who offered $30 million for a minority stake. We agreed this time that the funding would enable us to grow without sacrificing our mission. I asked that only my first name be used when the press release was sent out. Olivia, CEO and co-founder. Typically, Emma's picture appears next to a silhouette of my name as the piece reads. It wasn't really about hiding. It was about mastering my story. Do you not want to be recognized after an industry conference where I purposefully kept a low profile? Emma inquired. You deserve it. I said, I do. Not yet, though. Not from strangers, either. I was unable to explain my complex relationship with affirmation, not even to Emma. Though I wasn't sure I could take it when they minimized or took credit for my accomplishment, I wanted my family to see me for who I really am. Once it was indisputable. I had to have this for myself, finished before I distributed it. Besides, the combination of silence and empire building had a certain strength. I was gaining notoriety in the tech community as the ghost founder, the smart but camera-shy lady who created the groundbreaking platform Next Tech. My reputation was only improved by the mystery. Next was the Tech World magazine profile. They requested pictures of both founders, but I was able to get simply Emma's unobstructed picture and a backup one of myself gazing out over our expanding workplace. Without going into detail about my past, the piece commended our leadership and inventiveness. It was just how I wanted it. On paper, I was a multimillionaire at the age of 28. I purchased a chic condo in the heart of Chicago, but I kept everything simple and modest. I loosely described my flat to family members as a tiny space with roommates when they inquired about it, giving them the impression that I was still having difficulties. I still only had a small circle of trust. Of course, Emma knew everything. Kayla, my assistant, was aware of the familial circumstances. After planning too many celebrations for the Mitchell family, invitations were turned down. Dr. Winters, my therapist, assisted me in processing the mixed feelings of success that go unacknowledged. For what reason are you waiting? During one session, Dr. Winters inquired, why would now be the ideal moment to tell them? I gave the question careful thought. I want it to be so obvious that they are unable to defend it and so significant that they are unable to claim credit for it. Or tell me that I'm just lucky and that I'd like to be totally content with never receiving their approval. So I'll be fine if they still don't give it. Winters gave a contemplative nod. Are you pursuing that piece as well? Daily, I said. Next, I was building. Tech was more than just developing new technologies. It was about establishing a self apart from the standards that had shaped my childhood. I was aware of the irony that my brother had pursued a career in medicine after our father, but I was the one who brought about the healthcare revolution. More than 200 medical facilities around the country were now using Next Tech. According to studies, it boosted patient satisfaction ratings by 38% every few months and decreased communication errors by 43%. Usually, following a family event where I had been gently snubbed, I would use our statistics and retrieve our company's valuation. Not out of conceit, but as a reminder that value wasn't determined by approval from others. When old fears started to reappear, the figures helped me stay grounded. Then there were whispers that one of the biggest health software businesses in the nation, Horizon Health Technologies, may buy the company. They made a hesitant initial approach to see if we would consider an offer after declining multiple others. They are discussing at least $200 million, Emma remarked following a lunch with their development director to discuss potential directions. $200 million, sum that would garner media attention that even my success-driven family could not ignore. A part of me questioned whether this was the time to come out of the shadows. Another part, however, paused. Was I truly prepared for the collision of my worlds? How would it feel to be suddenly noticed by those who had been ignoring me all their lives? I had little time to think about these issues. The most unexpected twist of life was about to happen. I was looking over quarterly predictions on a Sunday afternoon when my mother called. Olivia. Excellent news, she declared without introducing herself. Sophia and Jason have decided on a date. The weekend of Labor Day, next month. They intend to have an engagement dinner at Bluebird. Your calendar will need to be cleared. The newest Michelin-starred restaurant in Chicago was called Bluebird. Without connections or a 3-month wait, it is impossible to get in. Jason was obviously using his connections on the hospital board to pull strings. I said, "That's great. Despite the complexity of our connection, I am really delighted for my brother. I'll be present." Fantastic. The tone of my mother's voice changed to one of criticism. Olivia, too. It's a really high-end event. Maybe we ought to go shopping for something suitable. You still have a pretty college-like clothing, I noted during Christmas. I looked down at my fitted pants and luxury silk shirt, which had cost more than the rent for most people's monthly expenses. My mother wouldn't be aware of it. Mom, I'll find something appropriate. Do not be concerned. If you're certain, that is, there was no mistaking the skepticism in her voice. Sophia is employed by a large technological company, an extremely remarkable woman. Track for executives, Everyone will look impressive with their attire. I nearly laughed at the irony of her worry. Rather, I inhaled deeply. Which IT company is she employed by? Something to do with health systems. I see. Horizon. Something I can't quite remember. According to Jason, they are highly significant in their field. A beat skipped in my chest. Horizon Health Technologies is presently engaged in negotiations to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to buy Next Tech. Mom, this cannot be a coincidence. Are you familiar with Sophia's last name trying to sound informal? I asked. Winters? Sophia Winters? You ask Sophia Winters. But why? Although the name was unfamiliar from our acquisition discussions, Horizon was a sizable business with thousands of workers. The connection was unnerving, though I hung up and contacted Emma right away. I explained the scenario and stated, "You're not going to believe this. A person from Horizon is engaged to my brother." What a coincidence, Emma said thoughtfully. Will it make the purchase more difficult? In your opinion, I'm not sure. But before that supper, I need to know who she is. Sophia Winters was Horizon's Director of Strategic Acquisitions. According to a cursory LinkedIn search, she would most likely lead the Next Tech deal, but she would definitely be involved. Additionally, everyone thought I was an underemployed tech support worker when we sat across from each other at my brother's engagement dinner in a few weeks. The humor in the universe was perverted. As the supper drew nearer, my family's pressure mounted. About my outfit, my mother called me twice more. In a voicemail, my father reminded me to bring something noteworthy about my professional background to share with Sophia's parents, who were highly successful individuals. The most agonizing call I've ever gotten came a week prior to the meal. Olivia, I have a delicate matter to discuss. My mother said, her attorney's voice. Never a good indication. Last night, your father and I spoke with the Winters. When they inquired about you, Jason said you were in between jobs. My stomach grew constricted. Mom, I'm not in between jobs. That small computer help desk job wasn't particularly noteworthy, to be sure. Jason was merely attempting to make things more amicable. The main idea is that Sophia's father may be able to hire entry-level IT personnel through someone he knows at Apple. Isn't that fantastic? Finally, we could put you on the right professional path. My work's casual disregard. The idea that I was in need of saving, the total lack of interest in what I had been doing for the previous 5 years. I felt a flood of frustration sweep over me. Thank you for the thought, Mom, but I'm happy where I am now. I spoke in a tight, controlled voice. Olivia, don't feel proud. This is a genuine chance. Everybody must begin somewhere. I hung up and called Rachel, an acquaintance from my youth who had just returned to Chicago. In contrast to my family, Rachel had consistently encouraged me to pursue my goals, even when she didn't quite comprehend them. She had developed into one of the few individuals who truly understood next-generation technology throughout the years. They prepare you for a trivial job interview. I needed Rachel's outrage on my behalf more than anything else. Even for your parents, the $200 million acquisition deal you're in the middle of is substantial. The saddest thing is that my brother's fiancé is actually the one negotiating the purchase of my business, I said, giggling at the ridiculousness. And nobody in my family knows. What will you do at this meal? Then, arrive in full CEO mode and watch their jaws drop, or show up in jeans and a sweatshirt like they anticipate? I gave the question careful thought. Not at all. I will simply be myself. No great revelation. No pretense. No games. Only honor. Rachel's eyebrows went up. That shows a lot of maturity. Therapy for 5 years will do that. I smiled slightly in response. In addition, I'm done attempting to convince them of anything. They will find out if they do. I will not conceal myself, but I will also not act. The final offer of $215 million with terms that would keep Emma and me at Dinner Horizon for at least 3 years came in the evening before the event. After the purchase, I chose a basic yet sophisticated black outfit for the dinner, and we were firmly on the verge of becoming Santa millionaires. I was oddly at ease. I now realized my value. Regardless of what transpired tomorrow night, I couldn't let anyone take that away. The Bluebird restaurant was as good as it looked. Glistening silver tables and banquettes with blue velvet are illuminated by crystal chandeliers. The Chicago River was visible from a wall of windows. Its black surface mirrored the city lights. I got there right on schedule. Not as early as my mother had recommended to assist with arrangements. Not late enough to get inside. Just like the businesswoman I was. On time and with dignity. My family had already assembled in a private dining room, which the hostess showed me. My father was talking animatedly with an elderly man while he stood by the bar. It was Mr. Winters. I thought, at the long table. My mother fiddled with place cards, shifting them around for the best possible social engineering. Jason was the first to notice me. You made it. Live. With the effortless assurance of someone who has never doubted his position in the world, he came across the room and gave me a hug. Meet Sophia. She was tall and graceful in a dress of burgundy, standing near the window. Her dark hair was styled into a chic updo. Although I had never met her in person during our negotiations, which had been conducted through middlemen until this last phase, I instantly knew her from Horizon's executive website. This is Olivia, my sister, Sophia, Jason said in that slightly contrite voice he always had when he introduced me to his successful pals. It's a pleasure to meet you at last, Sophia replied kindly, holding out her hand. Jason is always talking about you. I shook her hand, grinned, and wondered what he had said. Well done on your engagement. I'm glad for you too. My mom showed up at my side. Looks like you found something to wear. Olivia. That's good. The silence said a lot. You've been paired with cousin Margaret. She and you always got along. Translation. I was placed far away from the notable visitors. There were toasts and champagne before dinner started. First to speak, my father raised his glass to Sophia and Jason, to my kid, who throughout his life has brought us joy. His voice was full of emotion as he spoke. And to Sophia, a successful, intelligent lady deserving of him. There is no finer addition to our family than this. After a thoughtfully prepared speech that emphasized Jason's accomplishments, from his first science fair victory to his recent elevation to chief resident, my mother made her toast. As glasses clinked, she said, and now he's found a partner equally dedicated to excellence to Jason and Sophia. Sophia was staring at me with a small frown on her face, as though she was attempting to put me in a different perspective than Jason's underachieving sister. Conversation surrounded me as the first course was served. With the tactful demeanor of someone asking about a terminal illness, Cousin Margaret inquired about my work status. I said plainly, I work in health technology, administration of databases. Not false. Simply put, really subtle. Oh, that's nice, she said, echoing my mother's tone from before. Is there potential for growth in that area? My uncle leaned across the table before I could respond. Jason says you may have a lead on a job at Apple. Olivia, for you, that would be a significant advancement. I sipped my water slowly. Actually, I'm really happy with the work I'm doing right now. When my father heard, he joined in. Olivia. Accepting assistance to get your foot in the door at a respectable place is not a sign of weakness. Everyone wants you to be successful. From the other side of the table. Sophia was looking at me more carefully now. I noticed. Her eyes were beginning to recognize. Olivia, she said when the conversation paused. Her voice broke through the background cacophony. I'm sorry, but is Mitchell your last name? There was silence at the table. Jason appeared perplexed. It is. Of course. She is my sister. Sophia's gaze expanded. Olivia Mitchell from Next Tech is you. The moment I had secretly awaited and feared for years was finally come. Yes, I stated plainly, with a slight clink against the beautiful china. Sophia sat down her fork. Are you the founder? I wonder, Olivia Mitchell, the CEO, the one where she abruptly realized she was in a public place and stopped herself. Jason chuckled uneasily. I believe you're mistaking Olivia for someone else. Sophia, I think my sister is in tech support. No, Sophia answered slowly as she met my eyes. The CEO and founder of NextTech, a platform for healthcare communication that is transforming patient care nationwide, is your sister. My company is presently negotiating a purchase price of more than $200 million. There was complete stillness after that. My father's wine glass was halfway to his lips when he froze. My mom's hand flitted to her necklace of pearls. Jason had his mouth hanging open. Is this accurate? At last, my father succeeded. I slowly looked into his eyes. Indeed. 6 years ago, Emma Rodriguez and I started NextTech. We currently serve more than 300 healthcare facilities across the country and have over 70 employees. Why wouldn't you tell us? Though my mom was very perplexed. Sophia went on before I could respond, her businesslike manner giving way to sincere excitement. In the first year, Boston General's pharmaceutical mistakes were decreased by 62% thanks to your software. The way physicians retrieve patient data was completely transformed by the interface design. Your solution is light years ahead of what we've been trying to create for years. That's the reason we're prepared to spend so much money to get you, my relatives, who were worth $200 million, looked at me as though they were viewing a stranger. The voice of my father was quiet. Sophia gave a nod. Subject to final approval, the deal is scheduled to conclude next week. She turned and smiled at me, a little embarrassed. You are Jason's sister, but I didn't know that. Our experts have been handling the talks, and your firm profile only features Olivia without a photo. I'd rather keep a low profile, I said. The century's understatement. The remainder of the meal was a haze of startled inquiries and uncomfortable disclosures. An hour before, relatives who had felt sorry for me now sought advice on investments. On 3 separate occasions. My mother said she always knew I had a unique aptitude for computers. My father asserted that he had discussed his daughter, the IT entrepreneur, with his coworkers, as his suffering little sister prepared to sell her business for a price that eclipsed his whole anticipated lifetime earnings as a doctor. Jason alone kept largely silent for years. I remained calm throughout it all, responding to inquiries courteously, but without the frantic need for acceptance that had characterized so much of my past. Their abrupt, opportunistic pride made the validation I had formerly sought seem empty. Sophia drew me away as the evening was coming to an end. I apologize if I caused any awkwardness. Simply put, I was taken aback. I grinned, really. Don't say sorry. It has been long overdue, she added. For what it's worth, you have a stellar reputation in the field. You are referred to as the ghost genius. I can now see why you maintained such a low profile. My mom held my arm as we bid each other farewell. We must speak shortly, Olivia. Talk about things in a proper manner. I nodded, no longer afraid of the topic, but certain that it was inevitable. We'll enter my vehicle. Somehow, I felt lighter. I was finally able to reveal the secret I had been keeping for years. I would deal with whatever came next on my own terms, confident that I knew what I had experienced before I had even returned home from the supper. I received the first text. Mom, we should discuss brunch tomorrow, at 11, the Drake Hotel. My phone was overloaded by dawn. Suddenly, relatives recalled. They had always encouraged my interest in computers. I hadn't spoken to my cousins in years. Inquired about potential investments. Jason sent 3 different texts, each one more perplexing than the one before it, resulting in a straightforward, "Why didn't you tell me?" Only until my parents agreed to breakfast did I respond. Some discussions have to take place face to face. The Drake's dining room was tasteful and understated, ideal for the challenging discussion that lay ahead. When I got there, my folks were already seated. Both were immaculately dressed, as though they were attending a crucial business meeting instead of a family breakfast. My father, Olivia, stood clumsily, alternating between his customary cliched welcome and something more appropriate for a daughter he had recently learned was extremely successful. He decided on an awkward embrace. "You look good. My mom wasn't as controlled. We have so much to talk about. Darling, this morning, I read everything I could find about Next Tech. The user growth figures, fundraising rounds, and innovation awards. Why would you withhold this information from us? Your family is us." I inhaled deeply. "I believe you understand why." "No, I don't," in a defensive tone. My father answered, "Your endeavors have always had our backing." I had time to gather my thoughts before the waiter brought coffee. When he was gone, I turned to face my parents. "My fascination with technology was never taken seriously by you. Each time I attempted to show you my work, it was written off as a pastime. Before I find a legitimate job, I need to get this out of my system. It was easy to give up after a while. It's unfair." My mom objected. "All we wanted was for you to be happy. The IT industry appeared to be very unpredictable. You wanted me to take a route that you recognized and approved of. When I made a different decision, I kindly corrected. You viewed it as a failure." My dad leaned over. "Olivia, we've always recognized your ability. All we were doing was encouraging you to do well." "No," I answered firmly. "I was being pressured to fit in by you. There is a distinction." "Well," he said, "clearly it worked out. Take a look at your accomplishments. Maybe our encouragement inspired you." It was just the reaction I had anticipated and feared, taking the credit for accomplishments. They hadn't contributed to changing history to portray themselves as encouraging mentors rather than contemptuous detractors. "Do you recall urging me 5 years ago at Thanksgiving to obtain a real job, Dad? Or saying that since my own work wasn't viable, I should accept an administrative job at Jason's hospital? Do you recall setting up a small-scale job interview for me only last week, Mom? My mother was gracious enough to display embarrassment. We were worried about you. You never disclosed any information about your job. In what way are we to know you had the option to inquire?" Asked with sincere curiosity, not merely looking for a response that validated your preconceived notions about me. Over mimosas and eggs Benedict. The conversation went on, painful but essential. My mother wavered between being defensive and making an effort to make amends. As usual, my father attempted to uphold his authority by implying that he had always seen my untapped ability. "You were often praised for your intelligence by your brother," as though my legitimacy was retrospectively validated by Jason's endorsement. My mother offered. Then I said, "I know you both love me. However, love is insufficient without regard or comprehension. I needed you to recognize my true self." No, he desired for me to be. With preliminary plans to meet for dinner the following week, we parted ways. An initial step toward the future of our partnership. It wasn't a movie scene's cathartic ending, but genuine healing is rarely that way. That night, Jason showed up at my flat without warning. He said clumsily, "I brought wine," while displaying a pricey bottle of Cabernet. Thought we might require it. I opened the door for him. His initiative startled me a little. He had envisioned a suffering life for me, but my elegant penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor, was a long cry from that. "Nice place," he murmured, surveying the area. "Very pleasant. Regards." We took up residence in my living room. We're holding wine glasses. Beyond the windows is the shimmering skyline of Chicago. So he started, "I've been among us." The direct admissions made me laugh out loud. "Not totally. No. I have I fell for this whole story about you having trouble, being lost, or something. I didn't really inquire about your job. As in, I asked. No, you didn't. He thoughtfully swirled his wine. I believe I enjoyed being the one who was successful and pleased my parents. It was cozy. I was disarmed by his candor. I had anticipated justifications or a similar attempt at history modification that our parents had made. He went on. For what it's worth, I apologize, and I'm quite moved by your feelings. Sophia continues to discuss your platform. You must be a genius of some sort. I just said something that genuinely helps others, like what I strive to do as a doctor, because I felt something I believed. He gave a nod. Apparently, just on a much larger scale. We spoke for hours, had a real conversation. He inquired honestly about Next Tech and the difficulties of starting a business from scratch, possibly for the first time as adults. I inquired about his medical work, and when his responses weren't framed as proof of his superiority, I found myself genuinely interested in them. He stopped at the door on his way out. You know, Sophia really likes you. Although she was embarrassed to invite you to dinner, she hopes that you two would become friends, particularly if you will be collaborating after the acquisition. To my astonishment, I meant what I said when I said, I'd like that. As the acquisition progressed over the following few weeks, relationships inside my family took a new turn. My parents alternated between sincere efforts to comprehend my work and reflexive actions brought on by decades of viewing me through a specific prism. Despite my hectic SEO schedule, there were awkward phone calls from my mother asking if I was eating healthily and uncomfortable meals where my father tried to give me business advice. However, there were also times when there was a real connection. My father listened intently as I described the features of his platform and requested to see it next to it. Despite acknowledging that she had never fully grasped technology, my mother was proud of the things I had produced. Little yet significant steps. The thing that surprised me the most was how Sophia, as my future sister-in-law and professional colleague, helped me bridge the gap between my two worlds. Her viewpoint on the dynamics of the Mitchell family was distinct. She informed me over coffee one afternoon that your folks are making an effort. They simply lack the language necessary to understand this definition of success. I saw that they are learning a new language, one that you appear to speak with ease. She grinned. My upbringing was influenced by parents who valued professional titles and degrees. Years passed before I realized that there are numerous ways to have a meaningful life. I might be able to interpret a little. She also did, gently introducing my family to the computer sector, explaining my accomplishments in language they could comprehend, and occasionally bringing them back to reality when they started acting in ways they didn't want to. Even though she didn't always succeed, her efforts made the adjustment to our new world easier. Emma and I became center millionaires overnight when the deal closed on time. In addition to our full identities, the press release featured expertly taken pictures. 6 months after my brother's engagement banquet, I was finally gaining recognition as the ghost genius. Tucker's next co-founder. This was my first public recognition. The rhythm of life has changed. I was now in charge of Horizon Health Technologies innovation section once the Next Tech purchase closed successfully. Emma was in charge of international expansion, and our platform was being used in hospitals on 3 continents. The Chicago River, whose waters reflected the changing seasons, was visible from my office. As I wrapped up a conference call with our development team in Singapore today, the springtime sunshine glinted off its surface. My work was interrupted by an SMS from Sophia. Dinner at your place tonight is a reminder. I'll bring the wine you enjoyed. Expect emergency cupcakes from the bakery when Jason invariably burns something because he claims to be making dessert. I grinned. A year ago. I could not have imagined that our informal family dinners would become a monthly ritual. My parents occasionally participated. There were moments when we were the only 3. However, I valued the easy friendship that had grown between Jason, Sophia, and me. Our bond had grown faster while working with Sophia. Her direct attitude to business was similar to mine, and her understanding of my family's dynamics was really helpful. She had a deeper understanding of my parents than I had at times, recognizing the fears that underlie their domineering actions. Your father didn't write off your IT profession because he believed it wouldn't succeed. He didn't comprehend it, so he threw it away, and she watched. Furthermore, Richard Mitchell detests ignorance. The most significant change had been in my relationship with Jason. We found common ground without the hierarchy of a suffering sister and a successful doctor. We were both ambitious, meticulous perfectionists with a sincere desire to advance healthcare. Rather than passing judgment, we now exchanged ideas. My folks were making an effort. That was the best way to describe it. My father made a conscious effort to inquire about my work without instantly recommending changes, and my mother stopped giving me unsolicited input about how I looked. We had set new limits. We had real conversations instead of drills and avoidance during our weekly Sunday calls. Real ones, but not necessarily simple. My mom had even gone to the U.S. offices next door. When staff members welcomed me with evident respect, her initial hesitation gave way to genuine pride. The healing wasn't limited to the outside. I had been able to prioritize my personal health in ways I had not been able to during the startup grind thanks to the purchase. I was able to work through the complex feelings surrounding my family's unexpected acknowledgement with the support of Dr. Winter's regular therapy sessions. You've been shielding yourself from their criticism for years. In one session, she made a note. The behaviors still exist even though protection isn't required in the same way anymore. Gradually tearing down some of those walls is okay. I had followed her suggestion to create a wider support system in addition to my family. In addition to Rachel, who is still my longest and most reliable friend, I had made connections with other female entrepreneurs through industry gatherings and mentoring programs. A chosen family of people who understood my job and my journey had replaced the loneliness that had defined my early career. Being a mentor to young women in technology was one special source of happiness. I conducted workshops once a month for high school girls interested in STEM areas, imparting not only technical knowledge but also the emotional fortitude required to follow unorthodox career routes. According to my parents, computer science is merely a pastime. My own experience was echoed by a 115-year-old. Like my mother, they hope I'll pursue a career in law. What are you looking for? I requested that meaningful things be built. Without hesitation, she answered. Then construct them. I answered, exchanging resources and support, even if they are not members of your family. Find those who share your vision. Additionally, don't close the door on your parents' understanding. I was getting ready for supper with Jason and Sophia later that night. I took stock of my progress. My long-sought external affirmation had come in spades. Financial success, industry recognition, and even appreciation from family. Along the way, though, I found something more worthwhile. The capacity to justify myself. Jason showed up first, bringing the emergency bakery cupcakes Sophia had foreseen along with a homemade chocolate cake that looked surprisingly appetizing. He laughed and said, I hedged my bets. I'm improving, though. The smoke alarm should only be activated once. This time, Sophia showed up with champagne and an update on their impending nuptials. Conversations about jobs, weddings, and family gossip came naturally as we sat around my dining table. According to Jason, Mom is actually reading books about IT firms. Last week, I discovered tech founders under 30 on her bedside table. Without resentment, I responded. Better late than never. Later, as we were having coffee and dessert in the living room, Sophia asked me a question that surprised me. Have there ever been moments when you wish your family had seen your potential sooner rather than later? I gave it some thought before responding. Sure, there were occasions when it would have been less difficult and terrible. However, I doubt that I would have developed the same fortitude or sense of direction. When no one else believed in me, I discovered that I could. That is an effective base. Furthermore, Jason said with a fresh sense of self-awareness, I might have grown up even more insufferable than I was if Mom and Dad had been swooning over your tech career. The sound of our laughter drifted across the city lights. It was not the end of the journey. Family ties are always changing and never really set in stone. There will be more challenging discussions and more instances where ingrained habits threaten to resurface. However, a fundamental change had occurred. I was able to see my value on my own without the help of my family. Because of that freedom, I was able to forgive past rejections, create relationships based on who we were becoming rather than who we had been, and embrace their growing respect without feeling desperate. Impact, not notoriety, is the key to success. Nextech had surpassed my expectations by that criterion, enhancing healthcare communication and patient outcomes for thousands of people. And I had been successful in living a life that was true to my vision and ideals, no matter who gave them approval. Regarding family, there are two types, the one we choose and the one we are born into. The most important lesson was probably that when we give our true selves to a relationship, it may change. Those worth maintaining in your life will gradually learn to see you clearly the next day, even though not everyone will celebrate your journey. I was thankful for the travel, despite its complexity, as I gazed out of my office window at the metropolis. Even though I wasn't really sure how to proceed, I was doing it my way and defining success for myself. And that was the true accomplishment more than any acquisition agreement or approval from relatives. I'd love to hear about times when you had to have faith in yourself while others didn't. If my tale struck a chord with you today, please leave a remark below about your experience. Additionally, you should share this message of self-belief with anybody you know. Please show them this video. For more stories on pursuing your own path, even if it deviates from what others anticipate, don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate you listening to my story. Keep in mind that proving yourself correct is more important for real achievement than proving others incorrect.